Welcome back to the Jade in USA podcast. My name is Josh. And again, the goal of this podcast, we like to talk about various Gen Z topics, perspectives being Asian in the Midwest and as adoptees. Again, I am 23 years old. I'm living in Chicago, Illinois. Grew up in Southeast Michigan, where I also went to college. And yeah, I'm going to pass it over to Janie.
Yeah, hi, I'm Janie. Again, I'm 22 years old. I just graduated from Ball State University. Still looking for that full-time job, so I'm currently unemployed. And yeah, we have a lot to say. Again, we're Asian adoptees. I'm from China. Josh is from Korea. And this episode, we're specifically talking about adoptee topics. So we have questions that one of our Asian friends who isn't an adoptee has asked us, and then we have some other topics too.
Great. And yeah, again, just want to give background on the name of this podcast, Jade in USA, play on the made in USA term. Jade, Asian related term. We're Asian in the US, pretty self-explanatory there. And we were made, in a sense, we were raised here. So, yeah, and both our names happen to start with J. But yes, thank you for kind of giving an intro. We have a lot of interesting topics regarding the adoptee life and the adoptee experience. So I think the first thing we kind of want to begin with is the background on our Korean adoption and Chinese adoption, kind of where it came from. At least from our knowledge, we're not experts. We just happen to be a part of the community, but this is from what we know. But yeah, Janie, do you want to start?
Yeah, I can kind of speak on the Chinese adoptee background. Of course, it's different for everyone, like their own journey, whatever reason that they were put into an orphanage or given up. But a good percentage of Chinese adoptees have been affected by the one-child policy that China has had in the past, and a lot of Chinese families, to be honest, would value their male babies over their female babies. So there's a lot of female orphans out there, and that's why most Chinese adoptees are pretty much girls. And there's also some other just like political things that kind of go into why there's so many Chinese adoptees.
Yeah. And then on the Korean side, I was doing a little bit of research before this, but just to kind of brush up, but started back in like the 50s in the Korean War. And I believe the reason why they started were South Koreans wanted to like export, in a sense, like the mixed babies from like the war. And then it continued on for a few years, and then in the 80s was kind of when it peaked. So that's why a lot of Korean adoptees are now hitting like their 40s, is because that was kind of when the industry peaked. But then 1988 was like the Seoul Olympics. So Korea got under a lot of scrutiny from not just North Korea or like surrounding countries, but like the whole world. And so, because obviously it's a pretty bad look with a large amount of babies being adopted across in like internationally. And another reason why generally Korea was a huge adopting or exporting baby country. Sounds weird. Is because of like the whole culture back there. So like the patrilineal line is very, very important. Definitely said that wrong. So basically like the male family name, the male like bloodline is very important. So if there's like single like parent families, and a lot of like girls that were born, they weren't valued as much. So that's another reason why there's a lot more like women adoptees as well. Um, yeah, bad like affordable childcare for like in South Korea as well. So yeah, but we were both born in a time where I think, at least for in Korea, there's started to be a lot less. Like after the late '80s is kind of when it started slowing down. But yeah, that's kind of some background on Korea's adoptee history or adoption history.
Yeah, and with the Chinese adoptees, um, with like all of their politics or whatever in history, like most Chinese adoptees are honestly younger than a lot of Korean adoptees. I don't know if I've ever met a Chinese adoptee older than like 25, I think. So I'm sure there are some, but I think it was very specific to the time, like the 90s, 2000s.
Yeah, definitely a big difference between uh, Korea and China in that respect. But it's kind of cool that kind of found our place in the middle here, both of us. So yeah,
Yeah. So let's move on. We're going to talk about how our identity has changed over time. So, Josh, do you want to start?
yeah, I think I can speak for most, pretty much every adoptee in saying that when we first assimilated or brought into our new home or our new lives, we really don't know any better, especially because we're very young. So for me, I believed I was white. I think like obviously I looked different, but I didn't really have like the capacity to understand what that meant. Really, I just obviously you're in like, it sounds kind of weird, but you're in the first person, so everyone you're seeing, you don't see yourself. You just see everyone else. So everyone else around you is white or not Asian. You kind of assume yourself that you're white and you strive to be like the people around you. Um, so yeah, definitely for the first, probably till like late high school, early college is when I felt like I prioritized certain things in regards to what my identity was. And then I think around that time, early college is kind of when I woke up and then decided that I needed to spend more time and like prioritize my Asian identity, because thankfully I was able to go to a school where there was a lot of other Asians, so it kind of forced me to kind of have that realization. So I know that's a lot sooner than most people, but for me, that's kind of how my timeline went. Yeah, Janie, what about you?
For me, and I kind of talked about this in my first episode. Um, it's just my identity's kind of been evolving, but I don't think I did ever like reach the point that you talked about in college. My college was still predominantly white. I had like no Asian friends in college that like went to my college. So I don't know. I don't know if I've ever thought of myself as completely like white or anything. Like obviously I would want to assimilate when I was younger. But like there's just like the obvious differences of like skin color, hair color. It's just like I couldn't be white. So I'm just me. So I feel like even though I will like start to look into like my Asian identity and like Chinese culture and all of that, I still don't think I will like completely conform to the beauty standards, or like I just can't be that also because I don't have that background, that Chinese background, with the culture and like family and parents. So it's just, yeah, I'll continue to be somewhere in between for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that you're like just you,
Mm-hmm.
like you're not one or the other. And I feel like for me, I literally flipped from one to the other, and I identify more as like I said in my episode, I identify as like a Korean American. So I'm like trying to associate and identify with things that like are more Korean and whatnot, which I think is fine. I mean, there's no one right way, but Yeah, it's an interesting difference that we had, but of course we had different kind of experiences
Hmm.
lately, like with school and everything. So
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And I also think, I mean, people can call me whitewashed all they want, but it's like, what else am I supposed to do? Like, I didn't grow up with Chinese friends or Chinese culture, so you can call me whitewashed. That's fine. I'll wear whatever and do whatever I want with my hair or whatever. Um, and that's just how it is. So that's my take on it for sure.
no, it's good. Um, yeah, we have on here like that our identity is unspoken. Do you want to touch on that?
I don't know. Like, as in, your identity is just, it's like kind of like a closeted thing, and like, what I think you wrote down is.
Yeah, I think okay. I was also trying to remember what that meant. So I thought you wrote that down. I think if I wrote it down, I would have framed it in the idea like no one brings it up.
Mm.
Like it's like when you're growing up, you'd never address
Mm.
or ever like with your parents or anything when you're meeting other people or you're meeting friends. At least for me, it wasn't like, oh yeah, here's my son, like he's adopted, like that's why he looks
Oh,
different. Like
okay.
you just don't say it, like you just kind of like go along with it, and then you have to like assume or hope that people get it. There are definitely some times when I was growing up where you could tell someone was a little puzzled, like you can see it in their eye, like what, two and two aren't adding up here. Um so I think for sure it happened where we had to like explain maybe, or I'm sure my mom had to answer some questions like when I wasn't around, but I feel like my parents did a pretty good job of just like not making it central, which I think is good because I felt like that probably would have been very isolating as a kid to hear like, oh yeah, he's different, like a reminder kind of thing. But yeah, I look like retroactively thinking about it. It is kind of strange that like you just never brought it up, but maybe that's the way it needed to be. I don't know what your experience was,
Yeah.
but yeah, what yeah.
Actually, yeah. Okay, now it's like coming back to me. I feel that like going out in public with like my mom or my dad or both or whatever, and it's just like people don't know who they are to me, like because we don't look alike, and it is like that unspoken thing. But I don't know. At least in my hometown, it's like so normal that I like we go to the same places. I feel like people, if they do care or like see us multiple times, they know. But yeah, I guess that is something I was going to talk about later, but I guess I could talk about it now a little bit. Just like the
Yeah.
conversation that our like family members, I don't know if they have to have. I don't know how often they have it. Like yeah, like you said, they kind of do it out of earshot if they do. Of just like explaining, like for example, my I have three older brothers. They're all white. They're like biological kids of my parents. And whenever they like post pictures of me on social media or like they have like a framed photo, like a family photo or whatever in their house, and someone's like, "Who is that?" Like, and they have to like explain that. I think I don't know. I always wonder. I mean, I think in the end, it's just like, oh, that's my sister. She's adopted, and like that's it. And if people like I've I don't know if they've ever had like a problem or have said anything, but like if they have, like my family knows like that's just like a very close minded or a close minded individual, and someone they probably wouldn't associate with anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I think it's for me, like I said, kind of interesting to think back on all those interactions. Like now that we're adults, kind of thinking about how we were perceived when we were younger. Because when you're like really young, you don't even know
Mm-hmm.
like what's going on. You're just following your parents around. So yeah, you have like the maybe this can kind of take us into the next section about when did you figure out you were adopted and like become aware that you were different.
Mm-hmm. So to be honest, I have like a terrible memory. So I'm like kind of recounting what my mom has told me. So when I was little, I think she said I was like 3 or 4. I would like I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, mommy, we look the same," and like obviously we didn't. But I was like, I didn't know. Like, yeah, you're a toddler. Like, you don't have access to mirrors. You don't really know any different. And then once I started going to school, I think like first grade ish, I would like start to point out like other Asian girls or whatever and be like, "Oh, she looks like me." So like my mom like understood like I didn't know that I was different or like adopted, I guess in that way. Um, but I don't know. There's like a funny story my mom always tells me. One of my older brother's friends was like hanging out at our house. Whatever. He's like maybe late elementary school, middle school, and he was talking to my mom, and he was like, "Oh, when are you gonna tell Janie like she's adopted?" And my mom was like, she's like, "Michael, she doesn't look anything like us. I think she'll figure it out." And he was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess." So I don't know. It's just like something that happens naturally, I think, as you get older and become conscious as a human being, not even as like an adoptee.
Yeah. I don't think it's like a big like sit down, like we have to have a serious talk. Oh, by the way, like
Yeah.
basically you're not biologically related. It's not like that. I think for me, it was when I started noticing other Asian people, and then I was like, wait a minute. And then like I think it all happened really fast. Because yeah, like you said, like when you're like a toddler, you're not like looking in mirrors, you're not like aware of like all these other people that exist and social constructs and different like nationalities, really, to be frank. So yeah, I think when I started noticing other Asian people is when I realized like, oh wait, I kind of look more like them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, oh wait, why don't I look like my parents?
Yeah.
Wait, and then like I probably asked my mom, wait, what? And then went from there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you kind of always just kind of knew, and it was like a weird thing that also like you couldn't really talk about with anyone else because you just had to kind of like force it, like stuff it down. Not like that it was a problem, but like you couldn't really talk to anyone about it because most likely no one else you knew was like adopted, and you also couldn't ask the right questions because you were really young. So
Yeah.
very unique situation for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And like
Thinking about it
we've
back.
talked about it before, like we feel like we know other adoptees, like Asian adoptees, like throughout our lives, like growing up or whatever, but I think both of us like we just never talked to them on like that deeper level, or I don't know, just like there's so much going on or like so much that your mind is being open to already growing up and going through puberty and whatever, that like the adoptee thing, I feel like a lot of people sweep under the rug until they're in their 20s or even 30s or 40s.
For sure. Yeah, I can give two quick examples of people. So I worked this job between sophomore and junior year of college. It was literally this super chill job, like supervising like these youth flag football tournaments that would go on once a week. It was like a 12-hour shift. So it was crazy because it's me, and then you get assigned with one other person that also is like working with you, and all you have to do is just like direct people into different places, make sure the referees arrive and get there on time, and just give a report of like how the day went. Basically, it was just very, very, very chill. But you just had to be there, so you're just sitting outside for like 12 hours under a tent, and you're just with one other person. That's what they told me in like the interview or whatever. So I pull up there. It's in like the town adjacent to my hometown. I get there. Other guy pulls up, gets out of his car. It's like an Asian guy. I was like, oh shit, okay, well that's pretty cool. Like, what are the chances? And then out of the passenger seat is like an older white guy. I'm like, wait, no way. So then I end up talking to him, and then he's like, yeah, I'm adopted. And then I was like, no way, me too. Because like that was a crazy, crazy coincidence. And he was like studying the same kind of thing as me. He was a couple years older than me. But he had no like real interest like at all of like dissecting or like talking about any of that sort of thing. Like he was just very like was going his own way. He had like he was like very set in his beliefs of like like in the sense that he was just not interested in having like an emotional conversation, which inherently these conversations are. But I wasn't going to try to force him to. But that's just an example of a person that I feel like down the road is maybe going to have like a aha moment. Like, dang, that kid that I worked with like a few years ago, like maybe we should have talked about stuff. I don't know. So that was one. And then second one was like this girl that I was talking to for a little bit in college also. She was also adoptee, and she like similar kind of thing. She was happy. Her life was cool. Like, oh, it's just cool as a coincidence that we're both like adoptees, but we never like talked about it or anything like that. Like I honestly thought that would have made us like get a little closer, but it was actually just a non-factor.
Yeah.
So
That's funny because I'm like just now thinking back.
Yeah, good. Go ahead.
I also had a guy like freshman year of college I was kind of talking to, and he was also an adoptee. But it's like we're like, you know, like the Spider-Man meme. They're like pointing at each other. It was like that, and
Yes.
then it was like, oh, what? Well, now what? We never talked about it. We didn't really. I don't know. It didn't make a difference, to be honest.
And you can't. Yeah, and you can't say like force a conversation, because if you're not ready to have a conversation about it, like there's no like you're not ready, you're not ready. So it is just kind of unfortunate if one person is on like a further along per se, but we of all people know that like everyone's kind of on their own timeline with it or have their own opinions about it.
Yeah.
So next question, or next topic regarding it. Do you feel like you're like always being perceived or like worried about how you're being perceived? And do you think that your adoption status has anything to do with it?
I think growing up, I really thought about like how I was being perceived. I still do it now, but I feel like less so. Just like I've grown in confidence, which I think helps. But I did think being adopted did contribute to being so almost like self-conscious. I think it was just like another layer on top of it. Just I was already like an insecure teenager, and then on top of it, I looked different from my family. Like everywhere I go with them, people are perceiving me in like some way or another, and it's like I don't know. I've kind of accepted like I can't know people's thoughts inside their head, and to be honest, I don't really care at this point. So I've kind of gotten over it a little bit.
It's good. Yeah, I can't say for sure if being adopted and like always kind of have that subconscious knowledge of being different has contributed to it. I'm sure it did, but I don't think it's all the reason. I think everyone has like a sense of insecurity maybe or about something or like how you're being perceived, but I definitely think it played a part because like it's not something that people really understand, and people want to be understood and want to fit in, and naturally like we're just not set up to be viewed that way. And I think for me especially, like I just like especially my like I was saying, my identity is now very very much so like clashes with that status, because we'll get into this next part later, but like having to tell people or like explain to people, oh, like I'm adopted by the way, and then you get like mixed reactions, and then those bad reactions that you get kind of like traumatize you a little bit, so then you're like super super self-conscious of when you have to have those conversations too. So yeah, I think definitely plays a role. I think it's always going to be a part of like me.
Yeah, for sure. I think I kind of wrote down just like when we kind of talk about this a little bit later. But I think just being an adoptee, like as an identity, I feel like it's always just like a shadow that you have. Like no matter, like you always have a shadow, right? Whether or not the sun is like shining on it, so you can like see it more or whatever. It's just like, always with you. I feel like yeah, like I'll always be an adoptee, and it will always kind of affect how I view the world. But I don't know. At some points, it's not important, and at some points, it's just like that's just how it is. There's no other option. Um, yeah.
So, what would you say? You have three older brothers. I was an only child.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to explain, if at all, any correlation or experiences with having three siblings, three older brothers specifically, with you being adopted? You kind of talked about it earlier, though.
Yeah.
But if there's any other ones?
It's definitely different. I think it's also different because a lot of adoptees, or like, I feel like more often than not, most adoptees have like adopted siblings. So like they kind of can like relate to them. Or they're like also like a different race from their parents. So like they kind of understand that. So like me having three older brothers who are biological to each other and to my parents, like it's a little different too. I think I don't know. There's a little bit of insecurity that I've had before, of just like their blood and I'm not. Um, so it can be like a little hard. I mean, at this point, I'm like very like pretty like 90% confident in like my family and like their love for me and everything. But there's always like a twinge of, oh, but what if they would choose their side over mine if it came down to it? Or what if, like, I don't know. What if they just decide it's easier to like let go of me because I'm adopted and I'm not like blood related. So I don't know. That's definitely a big thing that I think about when it comes to my siblings.
For sure. Yeah, I feel like I'd probably be the same way. But for me, being only child, no siblings, no adopted siblings, no biological siblings, it's just a very like I don't say lonely, but like I had no, not even like an older sibling to like look up to talk about anything with. So like I had to pave my own path myself in every respect. Obviously, your parents are there, and they were there, but there are things that siblings are good for, that I just didn't have, which is fine. But I think that just made me a lot more like introspective as a kid, and that made me have to just be thinking about and be more like aware and like self-conscious about different things, including like how I'm being perceived, going back to that. So it was a blessing and a curse. I feel like I was able to not grieve, but um, go through the emotions of various things because I had more time to do so, regarding like who I am, especially when I got a little older. But yeah, that was kind of the only child experience for me. I really wish I had like a little, a little sister or something. I feel like I would have been a pretty good older brother. So yeah, just didn't happen, but don't regret it.
Yeah. And I mean, hopefully you guys
Yeah,
have listened to our first two episodes, but I love my brothers a lot and I know like they would do like anything for me, but yeah, there's always two sides to a coin. I'm very grateful for the way I grew up and honestly, I'm glad I'm like the youngest girl. I get like special treatment sometimes. My when I ran out of gas on the interstate, if my brothers did that, they would have gotten their butts whooped. But my dad was like, "Ugh, she's just a girl. It's fine." So, eh, it is what it is.
princess treatment.
Exactly.
Yep. Um, I mean, I already touched on it a little bit, but do you have a experience, awkward explanation about saying you're adopted? Is there any
Um,
issue that you've had doing that, or it's actually just fine for you? What is that
it
like for
has
you?
been fine for me so far. Like, I know you've talked about with Korean people that you meet, like Korean Americans that are not adoptees, that they get kind of weird whenever you say you're an adopted, when you're an adoptee. I haven't had like the opportunities to kind of like mingle with a lot of like Chinese people or like strictly like Asian people. So I feel like I don't really get that. Like I haven't had the opportunity to be like rejected almost in that way. But usually whenever like me being adopted comes up, it's like usually right off the bat. I feel like I'm pretty open about it because it's not like something you can hide in the end, like whatever. So normally when people see my last name, which is very French and not very Asian, they're immediately like they always ask like, "Am I French or whatever?" And then I just my answer is always, "Nope, I'm adopted," and my family's white. So it just kind of comes out, and it's like I haven't had any bad experiences where someone's like, "Oh, that's weird" or whatever. And like even if I did, I feel like again like that's not someone I'd want to associate with or talk with. They're just I'm not into closed-minded people, you know.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting that people just ask if you're French or not. Like, I feel like
Yeah,
you're pretty obviously
I know.
not.
I'm always like, do
Um,
I look French?
yeah, I don't know, but yeah, you kind of told my story a little bit there. But yeah, when I've talked to like other Korean American people or just Asian people, because I've had the benefit of being able to meet more Asian people, and then it inevitably comes out that I am, or like they ask me like, oh, like what's your last name, or oh, that's your last name. Like, wait, what? Like, and I have to tell them I've had a lot of experiences, especially with Korean people. If you guys don't know, Korean people are very cliquey and very judgmental, which is great for me. So and great for us as a community. But so yeah, like in college, I'll go to like the Korean American student club or something, try to meet people. Um, and at the time, I didn't have a lot of knowledge about the culture. Obviously, very little to very, at least then, like no knowledge of the language. So going in there very, very shy on top of me being a shy guy as it is, but I'm trying to go out there, right? And then getting to talk to some people, and then they find out that I'm not actually like a Korean American, like I didn't have Korean parents like them. You get some people that are like interested in like they're and it's like spun positively, but some people are a bit more like, oh, like kind of like disqualify you already. So I struggle with today, like, do I disclose this information or do I kind of let them discover it and then they ask me? So I think it depends on if I can kind of tell the vibe of the person. Um, but yeah, like I literally to this day, like I'll meet somebody and then they honestly don't even have any idea that I'm not just like a second gen Korean American guy, which is great because that's kind of what I'm trying to portray. But when it does come to that, I still get very like a little nervous because I don't know how they're gonna react because then I think sometimes like, oh, or like is this guy only like hanging out with me because he like, wants to be with only Asian people now? Like, I don't know. That's part of what's going through my head too because I just want to fit in, right? So I just don't like it's the bad experiences with people when I tell them have clouded my thoughts when I do it to this day. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely awkward every
Hmm.
time.
So you said like at this point, like without people knowing, they can perceive you as like just a regular like Korean American. I want to tell a story about, and I mean like if you're watching on YouTube, you can see what I look like. Um, so I look a little whitewashed, I guess. So I remember going to a party this past year, And this girl I met, I think we maybe met one time before. But I think we actually like we had only talked ever for the first time at that party. She immediately comes up to me and she goes, "Are you adopted?" And I was like, "Whoa, oh my god!" Like, say what happened to hi, hello, like whatever. And she was just like, I was like, "Yeah, can you tell?" She's like, "Yeah, you can usually tell." And I'm like, "What does that mean?" I don't know. It's just kind of funny, but I mean, if that's how I'm perceived, like, it is what it is.
Yeah. I will say though, you can tell, like with people.
Yeah.
Usually, now that I've met like a few, um, it's no like good or bad thing. It's just you usually just tend to have a certain look to you, and I think a lot of adoptees would be able to say that they can identify one as well. So, um, yeah, not a problem, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah, just a silly
cool.
story. She's a funny, funny girl. But yeah, let's talk
Yeah,
about how maybe our kids would be the first like blood relatives you ever meet. What are your feelings on that?
yeah, yeah. So obviously, we both don't know who our biological parents are, at least what they look like, or even know them or whatever. So our kids, assuming we have biological children, they're going to actually be the first blood relatives that we have or we know, which I think is a very, very beautiful thing, especially for us. So I'm, like I've said in the last episode when it was my episode, like I'm very motivated by having a very healthy and beautiful family down the road. So I'm very much looking forward to that day when you get to hold your daughter or son, look at them, and then be like, this is my child. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's very heavy, and I didn't even realize that was a thing until I think I was talking to one of other adoptee friend I have, and he mentioned that, and then it's like, yeah, you're right, man. Like that will be probably the first blood relative I know. So really looking forward to that even more now.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I feel like I've thought about this a lot when I was younger, even if I didn't really think about the whole adoptee thing. Like I did think about how there's no one who looked like me. And I think, I mean, it's part like curiosity. Like I feel like I'm a little like racially ambiguous. I don't look fully Chinese to some people. I haven't taken a DNA test yet, but I will at some point. Um, so it's just kind of like I don't look like anyone. Like I don't even resemble anyone that I know or am aware of. So like I've always thought about like having a child and like they would look like me, like how crazy that would be. But I don't know. I like have good faith. I have baby pictures of myself. I know I'm gonna have cute babies. So I don't know.
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, you need to take a DNA test. I
I
think
do.
you're gonna find it's gonna be some revealing information whether or not you're expecting it. Because yeah, I feel like you do kind of look. If you guys are watching, see, she kind of does look like a little ambiguous in a way. So not just you. I'm interested in seeing what those results
Yeah.
would be. I did take a DNA test, and mine came back 100% Korean. So my curly hair is still a mystery, but
Yeah.
I don't know how true it is. But yeah. Moving on. This is kind of all over the place, but next we have on here like as we grew up, we were like trying to be white. We kind of disowned Asian identity. Is that something you also did? Is that to what extent? What was that like,
I don't know.
if at all?
Like I wouldn't say I was ever trying to be white, but I always wanted to fit in. So I don't know if that like is the same thing to some people. Um
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like I knew I I guess to some degree like when you're a teenager, like you obviously you want to look good, you want to look pretty. Like I knew I would never have like the really curly, big, bushy like eyelashes like a white girl has, or I would never have like blue eyes or blonde hair or whatever. So I think that was just like that's just a fact. And
Yeah, but like, do you feel like you were like trying not to interrupt, but like, did you? When I mean like trying to be like, were you like jealous that you like didn't look like them,
I
or was it you're just kind of like, eh?
I think in a
Like
way,
it's yeah,
I think in a way I was just because like again like maybe if I was white, maybe people like maybe boys would have crushes on me or whatever. Maybe I'd get compliments from strangers, but like going out to like LA and going to bigger cities where there's more diversity, I feel like I'm not missing out anymore. Like once I'm there, it's like that's how it should be, like almost. And like being in a small white town, it's so different. So I don't know, like in a way I was jealous of their looks, but only because of the treatment, I guess, that they got.
for sure, of course. Yeah, I was definitely like jealous of looking the way jealous of. I'm coming down with a little bit of cold, I think, but so excuse me. But um, I was definitely jealous that I didn't have straight hair, jealous that I didn't have like blue eyes or something. Just wanted to fit in every possible way. Um, I didn't even feel like, yeah, maybe I thought that like girls would like me more if I was like white or something, because there was just no proof that like Asian guys were getting any girls.
Yikes.
Not even till like last couple of years, I feel like Asian guys are now up.
Yes.
But back then, even when I was in like middle school, high school, yeah, I was hating on my identity being Asian. Like I would literally like when I say disown my identity, I literally would just like make stupid. This is like so embarrassing, but like I would just make jokes, like Asian jokes, as you can imagine, like what kind of jokes, just to make people laugh, which is so sad. Looking back on it, but that was like literally where I was at with like who I was and how badly I wanted to fit in. So I was literally like disowning my own identity so bad at my own expense to make other people that I shouldn't have even cared about to laugh. So yeah, I feel like that, like I've talked to a lot of other guy adoptees too, and they've all said the same thing, that they kind of had that sort of mindset, especially in like high school. So yeah, definitely not proud of it, but yeah, definitely wanted to be something else.
Yeah.
It would have just been easier.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I've never thought about it. I guess in some ways, like now, I still like disown my like Asian identity, but it's like I don't want to be like any other copy and paste like Asian baddie or whatever. Like I don't want to be. I can't really or don't want to like adhere to Chinese beauty standards. Like I don't want to be pale and stick thin or whatever. So again, I think it's just going back to like I'm gonna be my own person and like be my own blueprint. So
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you don't have to be like, just because you want to not, like, just because you want to be a part of your own identity doesn't mean you have to identify like 100% to like beauty standards or something. It just means like you respect your identity.
mm-hmm.
Again, it doesn't have to be like visual.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I don't know. Maybe I guess I focus a little bit on like the outside looks of whatever a person, or of myself. So, but I feel like that's a lot of like what girls think of. It's like always looks first.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think it's an internal security, not just like that's like the root of the problem, or the root of the change is like your internal position, and then everything else kind of follows. So yeah, okay. Then we have on here Asian expectations. Do you want to go into that?
Yeah. I guess I think when I wrote this down, I was thinking more of like growing up in our hometowns, like very white schools. I always felt like there's like an expectation of like, oh, like the Asian kid, they have to be smart. They're probably nerdy. They're kind of shy and reserved or whatever. And I feel like that was almost forced upon me, even though like now, especially that I know myself better, I'm like, I'm not those things, and I don't know why these people like force that. And I don't know, even in my own family, it's kind of like that. Like if my family's listening, they're probably like, I don't think we've ever heard you speak so many words at once. Like there's always like that, the like shy and reserved thing kind of pushed on me, and I feel like if I'm quiet or I'm not talking, it's not because of like I'm just the shy and quiet Asian kid, like whatever. I'm just, let me chill. Like you want me to be entertaining everyone all at once? Like I don't know.
You think? Oh, so you think your family thinks that if you're quiet, it's because you're like. They think subconsciously it's because like you're the shy, quiet like Asian girl in the family or something, rather than just like that's who you are.
I guess. I mean, it's different with my immediate family, but even so, like I don't know. Like I feel like I show more of my personality, to be honest, to like people outside of my family more. So it just kind of shocks them. And like maybe it was because they saw me growing up, and like I did kind of like pull back and like become more reserved and whatever through like high school. But I don't know, at the core I feel like I'm different than maybe what they expected or expect out of me. So
Yeah, I think I agree in the sense that as I've gotten older, definitely been a little bit more quiet. And but I don't think that has to, I think it's just maturity and then realizing like I don't really want to maybe be participating as much as I used to when I was just a yappy little kid.
okay.
But yeah.
Interesting choice of words. Yeah, I mean, just because like
I don't know if that's what you were saying, but
I don't know. I guess we're in like opposite kind of timelines.
Wait. So you were saying you're quieter now, or you're
like I'm definitely more like opinionated and outspoken more now than I was like growing up, I guess. Because feel like I don't have those expectations on me as much anymore because I'm not in that closed like town or school or whatever, and I'm more independent.
Okay. I understand you now. Yeah. I misunderstood you before. Sorry.
But
yeah, the expectations for me, I don't even think it was that imposed. I don't even honestly. Sure, it was just like some jokes as you're growing up. Like there's like 3 Asian people in like my like elementary school, and we were all like happy to be smart. It's like, oh yeah, it's Asian kids are all smart, and like I'm like just I wasn't even raised. I didn't even have like a tiger mom or anything, so just happened to be that way. Same with high school. I was above average smart, so it was just part of it, the joke. Like, oh yeah, it's because you're Asian. Yeah. I was like, I'm smart, so it's fine. But yeah, at least like externally, I didn't really feel like there was that. I felt like expectation wise in like sports, you're expected to be bad because there's not a lot of good athletes that were Asian. But that was one thing that I felt like I proved wrong, was because I was pretty good at sports growing up. And I remember a lot of weird instances of like high school. Like I learned this later on, but apparently like a lot of like parents from other schools, like if the other team that I'd be like playing against, basketball or soccer, they'd be saying some crazy things like, yo, like referring to me like, yo, he's not supposed to be out there. Like, what is he doing? Like crazy, like racist things that I found out later, which I was so mad that like they were hiding that from me till like after I graduated. But yeah, so I feel like I proved those expectations wrong in that aspect. But yeah, like, oh, the Asian kid's so smart. He does band. He does all these extracurriculars. Like, he's such like a model student. Yeah. But didn't really bother me.
Yeah. Wait. Okay. Two things. So like the whole smart, like, oh, you're just smart because you're Asian. That thing, like, kind of, I don't know, kind of made me mad a lot growing up. Like when, like, obviously we were not supposed to, but when we, like, my classmates and I would compare test scores or whatever, and like mine was good because I was like above average smart. People would be like, you only got that grade because you're Asian. You're only smart because you're Asian. And I'm like, no, I'm smart because I'm smart. Like, we didn't got that. You're just dumb. So, that. And then, I don't know what else I was going to say.
Okay. It's okay.
But, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a crazy thing. I don't think that ever happened to me. Like, someone said, oh, you're smart because...
Yeah.
Or you only got that score because you're Asian. So, yeah, hearing that would have sucked.
Yeah.
It was more like subtle for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must have. Oh, the second thing I was going to say. Actually,
Yeah.
the only times, it's just kind of funny, the only times I'd like be around a lot of Asian people was I like took piano lessons like from 8 years old onwards. It would be at my piano studio like recitals. They were all like Asian kids, and I was like, whoa. But that was like the only instance where I was around a lot of Asian kids, which is so, I don't know, it's kind of funny. Like, it is a stereotype, like Asian kids have tiger parents who make them take piano lessons, but yeah.
Yes, very common. That you're telling that story just reminded me of actually what really opened my eyes. No pun intended. Costco. I would go to Costco with my mom, and there would just be Asian people everywhere. And that was like it was at least a monthly excursion. But I would be like in this weird like state, like when I became like more conscious when I was probably middle school. They're like, yo, there's a lot of Asian people in here. I wonder what they think, like me with like my white mom, just like getting groceries and stuff. But yeah, that was like a huge exposure to a lot of Asian people.
Yeah.
Costco's everywhere. Asian people love Costco. They love the deals. They love the bulk. They love everything about it. I love Costco.
Dude, that's so funny. I did not know that was a thing until now, but one of my good Asian friends loves Costco. He is obsessed with it. Like, he goes for fun.
They love
and he
it.
visits like different locations because he likes to, I don't know, see the different layouts. That's so funny.
It's magical. It's a magical place.
Wow. I didn't know that was a thing.
And I'm sure everywhere. I think everywhere it's a very like Indian people, Asian people. Yeah, it's yeah. I feel like a lot of like immigrant type of families love it. So
That's crazy.
it's pretty funny.
It's kind of funny.
Okay, so yeah, this I guess wraps up part 1 of being an Asian adoptee. We're gonna get into a little bit more thought-provoking, more emotionally driven questions in part 2 that we were supposed to get into this episode. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed some of our experiences and some of the things we touched on in part 1 here.
Yeah, absolutely. So stay tuned to our social media. I might take a DNA test and we'll reveal the results there. Stay tuned.
The world's waiting. The world's waiting.
So I hope you guys learned as much as I did in this podcast. I did not know Costco and Asian people was such a big deal, but so funny.
It's like PB&J.
Crazy.
Yeah, literally.
So yeah,
okay.
Stay tuned. Thank you for listening. Bye.
See ya.